Good afternoon, collectors and friends. Welcome to Trading Card Therapy, episode number 82. We have a very special guest in store for today. We're going to bring on my really good friend, Patrick Ganino, in just a few minutes. I'm going to start off this week's episode with just a few pickups I recently made for my PC. And if you've picked up anything really cool for your collection recently, let us know in the chat. I would love to hear from you. The first item that I wanted to show you, the gang here, is a really cool postcard from the 1915 time period. And if you look on the top there, it says Red Sox warming up, Fenway Park, Boston, Massachusetts. Well, if you know anything about the 1915 time period, that was a time period that Babe Ruth was still with the Red Sox. And for anything that's Boston Red Sox related, that is from that time period that is still relatively affordable, was something that I was certainly interested in. So this is the back of the postcard. You can see the postage domestically was 1 cent, foreign was 2 cents. This is completely unmarked and not written on, although there are some postcard collectors who prefer them to have writing on the back, because of course it ties it back to that time period and it gives you some context and perspective as to what was going on in those respective lives back then. So this is something that I paid $650 for at auction. Really don't know if it's a good deal or not. They don't come up for sale as often as you'd think. I just bought it mainly because I really like the aesthetics of it, as well as it being from the Red Sox time period when Ruth was still there. So even though, as you can see, I'm going to bring it a little bit closer, none of the players are easily identifiable, I still felt like it was good value. And since I have no plans on selling it, I felt like, all right, I'm going to go for it and add it to my PC. Let me know what you think. Did I get a good deal? Did I overpay? No idea. If you've been watching our first 80 or so episodes of Trading Card Therapy, other than my episode with my really good friend Justin Silver, who's got an amazing vintage hockey card collection, I do not often buy vintage hockey for my PC. But in this particular case, there was an auction running up in Canada. It's run by a really good friend of mine named Mark Juteau. He runs classicauctions.net. And they had in their auction a very rare ticket stub from the first season of the New York Americans from the 1925-26 season. So check this out. Cost $2.20. Believe it or not, this is before the Canadiens even played in the Forum. This game was played at Mount Royal Arena. And today's money, this would be about $40, which is still actually a pretty good deal. These are incredibly rare. And to give some context, Classic Auctions wrote as part of the description that we have rarely seen stubs or lineups for prominent teams this early, and with tickets now extremely hot in the hobby, we expect considerable bidding. As a point of reference, in 2023, we sold a first season 1926-27 Chicago Blackhawks full ticket for just north of $16,000. So as you can see here, the condition is not strong, but everything is readable. And even though the New York Americans are not the New York Rangers, the New York Americans were known as the Amerks. They predated the New York Rangers by a season. However, they did play their home games out of Madison Square Garden. So I thought it was a really cool piece of New York hockey history. And even though I'm a New York Ranger fan and not necessarily a New York Americans fan, you can see how they're all closely kind of related to each other. However, that is not the coolest part of that particular auction lot that I bought. Check this out. It is, to me, unbelievable this even survived. You ready for this? This is the lineup card from the 1926 hockey game between the Canadiens and the New York Americans. Remember, it's the first year of the New York Americans. And for those of you that don't know, I collect Howie Morenz, who's a former Montreal Canadian and Hall of Famer. Well, you can see here at number 6, he's listed. Now, they've misspelled his name. There's a few other notable players in the hockey game, and it's also refereed by our old friend, yep, that's right, Hall of Famer Joe Malone. So you can see it's got some writing on it, but for being about 100 years old as a scorecard or a lineup card, it's in incredible condition. you can see there's some notations on the back that really have nothing to do with the actual lineup card. But I thought that paired with the ticket stub from the New York Americans' first season was iconic and epic and would go great in my collection. So let me know your thoughts. We're going to totally switch gears now from hockey and baseball, and we are going to, of course, talk about collecting, but we're now going to bring in my good friend Patrick, and we're going to be talking about art and a lot of other fun things related to murals and Chevy Chase. So you're going to want to stick around. Patrick, how are you today, bud?
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, listen, I sincerely appreciate you joining us today.
Pleasure. Always.
All right. So, Patrick, even though you and I have got to know each other pretty well through the years, why don't you give the folks who are going to watch our episode of Trading Card Therapy just a little bit of background about yourself, kind of like what you've done, and maybe just touch upon your collecting interest. But believe me, I got plenty of questions for you. So,
all right. So my background is I'm a mural artist. I paint murals on buildings all over the country. So I'm kind of a nomad. I travel around and leave my my signature everywhere. And I've been doing that for about, I think I'm coming up on my 26th year. And it's an amazing career. I find myself in some of the craziest possible places and with the craziest people ever. And it's super stimulating. So I love it. And that's partially how essentially I got into the trading card business. I basically, I started marketing myself pretty heavily online when Facebook pages came out. And from there, I learned a little bit about SEO and how to market online. And then Instagram came out and TikTok and Twitter and all these other guys. But from there, I would help out certain people. And I created essentially a little social media marketing company that's still around, Social Tuna. And one of my clients was a mutual friend of ours who's heavy into collecting. And I took a trade instead of cash. And basically I traded for my first card. It was a Michael Jordan rookie PSA 9. And at the time, I think it was worth like $2,500. And, I think it's on average at 17, 18 grand now. So I continued trading with him for quite a bit. And I've traded with you before. And that's essentially how I got into it. And I fell in love with vintage basketball. It's my favorite. I have some other items and I've got some signed jerseys and other sports cards, but vintage basketball is my favorite by far.
Interesting. So am I correct in saying, and maybe it's not how you like to portray yourself, but I know for me, like if I'm out with a buddy at the bar and I'm telling, a friend about you, I will literally say, hey, this is a really good friend of mine, Patrick. Got to check out his stuff. He is the celebrity mural artist to the stars. So is that how you describe yourself?
I don't, but I've heard myself described like that. So
yes, well, I think that you should.
I try to stay a little humble. I try to stay a little humble, and
you're more than just a little humble, Patrick. So seeing as how we're kind of starting off, with this, we're going to get plenty into collecting.
Okay.
But for me, and I think many other folks out there, we're certainly intrigued by murals and the beauty of them. But can you maybe give us a little insight into like what it takes to actually put one together? How long does it take? I mean, I have so many questions. I'm not going to bore you with all of those, but I would love to hear just a little bit of insight into what actually makes these happen.
Well, there's different ways that different artists go about it. I mean, I can talk about my way. But when I see a big building, the first step is it's math, right? You're taking measurements. So you need to be pretty exact, 40 feet by 20 feet, let's say. From there, I typically come up with a budget with my client, some sort of budget, because, with a 40-foot by 20-foot building, I could design anything on there. I can create the Sistine Chapel and make it $1 million project, but maybe they just want to spend 40 grand or 20 grand or 60 grand or whatever it is. So I usually say I find myself guiding them if they don't have a budget to getting into a budget. And it's real simple. I'll be like, do you want to spend 40 grand? They're like, oh, no. I'm like, do you want to spend 30 grand? No. Do you want to spend 20 grand? That's the number. Now we have a budget. From there, I design the mural according to that budget and how long it's going to take me, difficulty, and so on and so forth. So things are more difficult to be painting a face, architecture versus something underwater or a landscape, because a face has to be perfect. A landscape, if the land dips a little bit, nobody's going to complain. And then from there, I create my design, and then that design is turned into math as well. And when I actually go to the building, I create a grid on it, kind of like you did in first grade when you had like this grid box. and then there was an image in a grid box, and you had to basically go to box 1 and see what line was in it, and you went to the blank box 1 on the other side and filled it in until you transferred your image over. And that's essentially how we do it on buildings.
Wow. Very interesting.
A short version.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. Curious, what's been one of the longer murals in terms of time? Because I know I've talked to you, Patrick, you'll be out of town for weeks, bud, at a time.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I'm curious, has a mural taken upwards of months? And if so, what really led that project to take so long?
So my longest outing would be 45 days, and it was in Brooklyn, New York. It was a 12-story building, and the reality is we just had a horrible time with weather. So when you're doing buildings, like, your focus now goes to weather every day, every afternoon, every night. You're looking at weather, seeing when you can get in there, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. On the Brooklyn project, we probably lost 12 or 15 days due to rain. So I could have actually banged that thing out in about 30 days.
Wow.
You got to factor it in. So, like, even the last project, I just got back from Texas last Thursday. I actually had it booked until the following Sunday, and I finished early. So a lot of times I'll just buy a one-way plane ticket. I'll get the hotel or the Airbnb set up, properly, with them knowing that I may, jet out early.
Sure.
I've never gone over, though. I only get done early. Just saying.
All right, I like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of murals, I know one of the most impressive ones that I've seen, at least online, even though I'd like to see it in person, is the one that you did for Hulk Hogan in Florida. Oof. So what I wanted to try to do is kind of, take the intersection of sports and art, which is really two of your passions, and try to talk about some of that, of course, on today's episode of Trading Card Therapy. So talk about a little bit how that came to be. And then I'm sure a lot of folks out there, including myself, want to know, like, was Hogan intricately involved in this, or did you just say, "Hey, Patrick, here's the check, bud, go and do your thing"? Would love to know.
No, he was involved, and some clients are heavily involved, and some aren't. Some really just let me sort of drive the car. He was involved from the get-go. When I went down to meet with him about the project, and I'd done some other little things for him prior, but when I met him for the project, we just basically looked at this long. It was 78 feet wide. And it was a weird piece because it only went up about 6 or 8 feet on each side, and then stepped up like a step until the middle, which was about, I want to say maybe 12 feet tall. I could be wrong, but it's been a little bit. But I've got other numbers in my head. But yeah, I went down there, met with him, and we were like, "Hey, we want to create sort of this movie reel of your life, like all these iconic moments in your life." So we sat down and we just picked out images that meant something to him. And from there, I created the design, and he would call me. He was funny, man. He was. I love working with Hulk. He's such a nice guy. Like, he would call me and just be like, "Brother Pete." He's like, I'm driving into work. I got my coffee, and I'm looking at this building, waiting for this mural. Like, nice messages, and we would discuss it. And I'd send him images as I went about, and then the install was awesome. That was one. It was an exterior mural that I actually did on canvas and installed it on site because of the time frame. I can work longer hours in my studio, and it's just a little bit easier. That mural per se, there's only a 2-foot ledge. So the mural wrapped around the second floor and there's a 2-foot ledge. We couldn't get a lift in there because the town owned the sidewalks and there were palm trees. And I'm getting a little older. I'm getting, not that I'm totally risk averse, but I didn't feel like standing on a 2-foot ledge for, 15, 20 days doing portraits. So we did it on canvas and used a really cool product that allowed us, almost like wallpaper glue, to glue it on the building, and it adheres to whatever surface it's on. So it's strong, it's sturdy, and it's not going anywhere.
From what I could tell on social, when it was unveiled, it was a big deal down there, right?
Yeah, it was on a Monday night where they do karaoke. We had a drone guy there. We had a photographer, a filmer, and they captured everything. And thankfully, and I think Vo, right? Vo is his guy, great guy, friends with him for years, and he just made sure everything kind of connected and worked out well. So I had my kids down there and wife, and I wanted to make sure everybody got pictures. And he was just amazing, man. Like, his energy and his excitement is kind of contagious. Like, when he saw it, he was just like, wow. And you felt it. You felt like, all right, I did it. I nailed it.
Patrick, I would say that's probably what happens for me every time I see your work. I'm not just No, listen, it's the truth.
I appreciate it.
It's not just a piece of work, it's a piece of you.
100%.
And
100%. And I feel it. I mean, when I'm done, I've exhausted all that energy, and people are like, do you like this mural? And I'm like, I probably won't like it for about 6 months because I'm in it still. The technical aspects, the levels, the rain, whatever obstacles I had to come across, the heat. So I can't see it fully as a viewer does. I need about 6 months away from it, and then I'll look back and I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. Or I'll be like, oh, I fucked that up a little bit,
It's interesting, even though it's unrelated, I do feel like that sometimes happens to us in collecting. In other words, sometimes we go out and maybe we buy a card and we're like, I think I spent too much.
Happens to me every time.
I know you text me often. Hey, Leighton, is this a good deal? But it's interesting.
By the way, when we get into the cards, you're gonna have to ask me about the Bill Russell Will Chamberlain.
I will
just put that. Okay.
All right, I'll make a note. So in terms of Hogan and the mural, would you say that was the most fun you've ever had a mural? And if not, I'm curious, what was like one of the most fun projects involving the creation of a mural that you ever had?
It's tough, man. It's tough. Look, I enjoy every project. I truly do. But, I find that I overbook myself and find myself in a time crunch a lot of times. Or a lot of times celebrities will call and they'll want work done and they'll want it in a month. So I have to switch my schedule around. So I find myself enjoying it, but maybe not as much as I could because of that time crunch. Like Stallone, when I did Stallone's piece last year, I got a call maybe a month and a half or 2 months prior to them wanting it installed. So I had to literally call clients that I already had on the books, push them. Thankfully, they were all gracious enough to let me push them. And then I had like very little time because it was right before Thanksgiving, and I was flying to Thanksgiving with my family. And I didn't want to miss that. And I think I ended up having like 18 days or something insane to do like 40 portraits. And so you enjoy it, but you're pushing, man. I mean, that project itself almost killed me, man. I'm 48, so I was 48 at the time, end of last year. And bro, I was doing like 12-hour days, man. And I would come home and my family would want to talk to me. I'd be like, guys, I love you.
Yeah.
I'm out of juice. That's it. I got nothing left. Yeah. So I would go to bed right when I got home, essentially after I ate. I would get up and just go back in the studio and just crush it every day. It was a tough one. That was one where I didn't think I was going to make it. I was probably maybe 6 or 7 days into the project, and I was like, I'm not going to hit the deadline. And they were doing a big, they were doing Rocky Day. Like you can't miss the deadline. Like this is the deadline. And I was definitely stressing out. And I woke up and Nick Cordasco, who got me the deal through Stallone, sent me this video from Stallone. So I wake up and I'm thinking, I'm not going to make it. I'm tired. And I wake up and there's a video from Stallone being like, hey, I love it, because we were sending him to work every day. And he's like, and he just gave me the Rocky speech, man. He gave me this like speech that, I popped out of bed like without my feet touching the ground, and I went to work. Yeah, like, how do you fuck that up? You got to do it now, man. So it worked out well. So I enjoy most of them. My short answer is I enjoy live painting. When I do charity events, I usually do a 2-hour painting. I like those because it's fast, it flows. People are talking to me while I do it. So it's engaging. And those are probably my favorite projects to do. And they're done in 2 hours. Like I know I'm going to get them done in 2 hours. It's in and out.
I think we're similar in this respect, even though I'm certainly far from an artist, is that people sometimes mistake folks like you or I who actually enjoy our work and enjoy what we do for a living, that we just always have fun. And that they're really, there's bills that have to be paid. There's time crunches. Sometimes there's clients that have needs that are, beyond like what we can accomplish. So I feel similar in that regard. Like people are asking me, hey, Leighton, isn't it amazing to go to Nebraska and buy a collection? Sure, once the collection's bought and secured and like on the way back, but what about all the agita, the stress, and all the work?
And flying there, going away from your family and sleep, what I mean? It gets to be a lot, man. I mean, listen, I just got back from 2 weeks in Texas and living in a hotel and doing about 10, 11-hour days. And I'll tell you, man, it was good to be home. It was a fun
Absolutely.
project. It was great being there, but it's great to be home, you know?
So I have a question that I think a lot of folks who are watching this will have a question about. Did you get a chance to talk any wrestling with Hulk or any Rocky with Stallone?
No, I mean, the conversations, I guess, with Hulk, I guess indirectly when we were going over the designs and him reminiscing, you know,
Sure.
so that would be that. Stallone, no, man. Stallone was, you know, the video happened. There were a couple texts. Then I met him for the first time at Rocky Day with the reveal of the mural. Took a picture in front of the statue. He gave me some kind words, which was nice. And then I thought that was it. And then we're in this after party we got invited to, and I was coming out of the bathroom, and this very large security guard walks up to me and goes, "Can you come with me?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Mr. Stallone would like to talk to you." And he brought me in a private room, and we chatted it up for a couple minutes, which was pretty amazing. But other than that, no, sir.
All right. So when you were going over kind of like the different things that you wanted to include in Hogan's mural, did you see a sparkle in his eye when it came to like certain memories when he was discussing wrestling with you?
Yeah. You know, obviously iconic moments where he's pulling the shirt off. NWO was a big one that he brought up. Um, Obviously Andre the Giant. Like there were certain ones where he would just go into it a little bit more, and you could tell that those were iconic moments for him. You know, I'm sure in his career where you know, we all have our lives. We all live in our own movie, right? But there's moments within our movie that definitely dictate which direction we're going to go and which sliding door we're going to go through. And I think those were the parts for him where he's like, this brought me to this level, this brought me to this level, and so on and so forth.
So interesting that you were, able to make that kind of part of your journey. And it's part of the mural and part of the work, but kind of like the way you're talking about it, I could see what you mean. We've known each other for now a while, where I could see like you're in the moment, you're not really appreciating these cool little things that are happening, but yet maybe in 6 months or in 9 months, when you're sitting down with your wife or your kids or your buddies and you're enjoying a nice meal, that's when you could
Yeah.
pinch yourself and say, "Oh my God, that was so cool that I did XYZ."
Totally. It's true, though. It's true because you're not only in the moment with this mural trying to finish it, whether you're painting on the building or installing it, and then the reveal with the client. And like, I can't thoroughly enjoy till everything's buttoned up, the check is in my pocket, and we're all happy. So, like, I'm, you know, kind of like you're flying out to Oklahoma to look at a card set. Like, yeah, it's great, but like, I wouldn't say stressed or anxious, but like, you don't know what's going to happen until you get back on that plane and you're heading home and it's done. So, and I like to hold myself to a certain level with pride. And until I'm on that plane back, you know, the job's not done essentially, you know?
Totally agree. So tell me now a little bit how you and I both have a love of vintage basketball. Someone traded you this Jordan, but that's not where your love stopped. So tell me about how you caught the bug, why vintage basketball versus vintage baseball or football or hockey or whatever the case may be.
Well, I love basketball, and you know, I was a Bulls fan back in the day, and I remember the first game I ever went to, believe it or not, was it was the Bulls Miami Heat playoff game. I was down in Florida, and my roommate, I had a couple of roommates, and so she sold them to me and my friend Jim, and we were like, we're going. And actually, I don't even think Jim went. I think I went with somebody else. But regardless, I went to it, and I loved it. I loved the energy, and yeah, I mean, so I love basketball. It's a simple game. You know, I'm 5'6" and I can't play worth a damn, but I wish I could. You know what I mean? I like to identify as a basketball player. Can I do that? Does that count? I don't even know.
Sure. Hey,
But the first card was the Jordan, and the second card was the Magic Bird rookie, PSA 9.
Yeah, it's
and then the third card was the Wilt Chamberlain in action PSA 9. And what I liked about it was
that, right?
Yeah, baby.
Ooh.
That's a good one. There's only 30 in PSA 9 in existence, so that's a tough one to give up. But I think it was when he showed me, and it was Jason Koontz, when Jason showed me how PSA worked and the auction prices. And I realized that there's a whole nother angle to it. It's not just about collecting these basketball cards and whatever, but it's like real estate, right? There's a market price, and you can see what pricing goes on and what the latest sale was versus what the average sale is. And I really just found that super interesting. And so vintage basketball stuck with. because I like the fact that there weren't variations. There weren't like, this is it. This is his rookie card, and that's it. Boom. Now there's red ice and blue ice and purple ice. It's too confusing. I don't even know how to do it. I don't enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like I would say the most recent cards were Anthony Edwards rookie, Silver Prism.
Oh, I remember you were telling me about those boxes. I'm like, you got to stop. You got to stop.
I stopped, bro. I stopped. I hit the plug. I was buying those like an idiot, man. You know what I mean? I'd buy these boxes hoping to hit. I think bro, I'm not even kidding. I think I spent a couple grand, like a couple thousand, maybe $3,000.
It's all right.
And then when I talked to you, you woke me up. You really did. You were like, Pat, you got to stop. And I was like, fuck it. He's telling me to. I got to stop, man. What am I doing? Bro, it was crazy. And I took all of the cards and I gave them to this little kid. I kept a couple of the good ones, and I ended up getting a PSA 9 Anthony Edwards, and I think I got a 9 Wemby in another later box, but then I stopped. I liked it though. It was fun. It was fun.
Well,
I really enjoyed it.
It's fun. Of course it's
but
fun.
Then, but you know what else frustrated me was I started opening them, and then I would get these jersey insert cards, and I started looking up the value of them, and there wasn't that much value. And
You
I
get
was
depressed.
like, fuck. Yeah, I was like, fuck this. What am I doing, man? You know what I mean? And then I realized, I think when I talked to you, that to get the the good cards, you got to buy the more expensive boxes. I was like, there's another box?
Yeah,
And
there's like another level.
Yeah, I don't like that, man. It's too crazy. So vintage basketball, limited, it's easy. I can understand it, and I don't have to like differentiate, all these colors.
So what's your kind of like your white whale right now in vintage basketball? What are you looking for?
I want to upgrade my Wilt Chamberlain, which I think you do know. I have a 6 Wilt Chamberlain rookie, and I'd like to upgrade it to a 7 and then eventually an 8. And that's what I've been doing. I think I started with a 4 Wilt, and I've slowly upgraded. And but that's probably, I would say that's the one. And outside of it, Wayne Gretzky rookie. I'm gonna
Peachy.
But yep. So those are the two.
For those that are watching, maybe we can offer collectors a tip that are kind of just starting out. What did upgrading along the way do for you versus saving all of your money for some super big purchase 7 years from now? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious for those that are watching so that you can share your journey with them.
Yeah, I like the upgrading because it makes you feel like a kid a little bit. Like that's the fun part, if you could trade up, and we've done a couple, and I like that. I think it makes it fun and interesting, and I try not to spend another white whale would be I want a Jordan rookie, not Jordan rookie, Jordan autograph card, which I just haven't gotten yet. You know what I mean? Because every time I'm about to pull the trigger, I'm like, you don't need to spend that. You know what I mean? Like, just chill out. Like, it's stupid. It just gets stupid. And the worst is if you have a couple drinks, which I'm not a big drinker, but if I have a couple drinks and I'm on that phone, man, I'll wake up the next day. This will go into the Wilt Chamberlain Russell card. All right. So this is what I did. I had a couple drinks, and I've been eyeing this dual shine Chamberlain Russell card, not graded.
Okay.
And it was from this guy, and it was authenticated from a well-known individual, but not like a PSA or anything like that. It came with a certificate. I'm not going to name the name because I don't want to smear anybody's name.
Sure.
And I bought it. And then I sent it into PSA, and they were like, nope. And the problem with eBay is, they guarantee it, but for trading cards, you have 3 days. You don't even have the card back. So you have 3 days to return it. So I had to eat it. So there was my learning lesson. I made 2 learning lessons. Don't buy boxes, and don't buy, unauthenticated items. So I was really, bummed, man. I was super bummed because it was a cool card.
Yes. It's interesting, Patrick, and this is what I love about you. You'll still text me on occasion and say, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? And to me, that's what's fun about being friends with people who collect. Because if it was anyone else, you'd be like, oh, I'm bothering this guy. But yet we all know, there's going to be a time where I have an itch. Patrick, what do you think about this piece of art, right, that I'm thinking about adding to my collection? And so I'm curious, speaking of that, I know a little bit about what you do and the murals that you've done, but has anyone ever come to you for specific advice about buying art? Not from you, but in other words, as an investment?
Yeah, that's just a tough thing to answer. I mean, like if you're not doing high end no names, and no names I mean by like society has made them a known name, but just in general, like it's hard to sort of do that, especially if you allow local artists and stuff like that. And this one man selling or painting for $600, is it valued at 600? Did you buy it for 600? You bought it for 600, it's valued 600. If you could sell it, whatever you get for it is what you get for it. So I'm not a big, and it's not that I haven't bought art, because I have bought art. I bought art that touched my soul. Like if it's some piece where I'm like, it's breathtaking, I'll buy it. But I don't buy it with the thoughts of reselling it. You know what I mean? It's hard.
I not only agree with you, but I've taken that philosophy. I collect wire photos, as you know.
Yep.
And to me, wire photos and art are very synonymous. And so
What's it worth to you?
Exactly. And I've been collecting photos for probably 20 years. I've
Yep.
sold a total of 2.
Yeah.
I've bought hundreds.
Yeah.
And I've
That's
sold
your stuff.
2. I've sold
And
2.
how do you value that? How do you value it?
And I can tell you the 2 that I sold, I want them back. I wish I had them back.
Yeah, I get it. I sold one card. It was the the 1933
Sport King?
is it Sport
Nat
King?
Holman? Nat Holman?
Nat Holman. I had a 6 and I
Ooh.
sold it like 2 years ago.
Good card.
You can't even touch it now. You can't even find it.
No.
I rebought it for the same price I sold it for in a 3 because I was so mad at myself. And that's another one, White Whale, where I'll look on eBay and I'm like, I'm getting that card back. You know what I mean? But you can't find it. But I didn't realize it was going to happen.
Yeah, listen, of course not. But it's funny. I know when you really want something, because you'll text me like a few texts in a row.
Yeah.
You're like, what do you think about that? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this?
Yeah. But that's why you have a mural in your shop, because that's my way of saying thank you.
Oh, listen, you've said thank you in more ways than one. And for those that want to know what Patrick just mentioned, we're going to put a picture of it here when my video editor gets a hold of this. But Patrick did a phenomenal mural of Babe Ruth a couple of years ago that's in our store. And as Patrick's saying, it's a little thank you. We try to pay him. He wouldn't take our money, but we do trade. We trade cards sometimes. It is a lot of fun. So speaking of the National and trading, because we saw each other for a very brief minute this year at the National, you were there with a very special guest. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Chevy Chase, who you were kind enough to introduce me to at this year's National Sports Collectors Convention. But for those that don't know, Patrick works very closely with Chevy. And in particular, I know that, you've gone on the road with him. You've done not only just signings, but like, for example, when the Christmas, time period comes around, you're sometimes going on the road with him. You're doing a little bit of a screening and a talk with Chevy. And then recently you just told me, which I think is super exciting, you just created like a whole Chevy Chase 35th anniversary product. And I would love for our audience to hear about it directly from you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with Chevy for I want to say 6 years now. I think 6 years, and we became very close friends, my family and his family, and we have a great relationship. And we do the Chevy tour and everything like that. And every year I want to come out with like cool stuff, so I do the merchandise for him. And this was the 35th anniversary, and I was like, I'm not going to miss it. I got to get on it. So I started working on this about 8 months ago. With ideas and vetting out different products, custom products, and we got a really cool box. It's a 35th anniversary legacy box. It comes with everything in it is custom. So we have a leather ornament. We have a metal moose mug ornament. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 trading cards in it. One of the trading cards. No, these are unsigned.
Okay.
I'll get to the sign part for sure. But one of them is like a special 35th anniversary poster, which I designed on the iPad digitally. You get a deck of playing cards because he loves playing cards. And I had Butch Hartman, who is the artist for Danny Phantom in Fairly Odd Parents. I had him design that. You get a little bag of popcorn from Lisa's Goodies. And then there's the poster. The poster signed by Chevy. So everybody's guaranteed a poster signed by Chevy. And then you get one additional relic or card. So the relics would be, there's 4 insert cards and I'll get into that. And then there's, for all the 6 cards, we have Juliette Lewis, Randy Quaid, Miriam, Beverly D'Angelo, Chevy, and Brian Doyle Murray. And those cards, you'll get either one of those signed cards or one of the insert cards in each box. So it's random. And I took that from my gambling with the boxes of basketball cards. But I'll show you one of the cards.
See, you did learn something, Patrick.
I did learn something. I was like, all right, man, we're going to do this. I'm going to get them now. So this is, let's see if you can see that all right. Can you see that okay?
Yes. Wow. Very cool.
So this comes from the pig costume that they wore in the beginning of European Vacation. So the Griswold family is on a game show. They're all wearing pig costumes. They win the game show, and that's how they get the trip to Europe. And so I have the pig costume, and I sliced off from the legs, and we made, there's only 40 of these. Very and I actually, do you want to see the pig head?
Yeah, I do.
Let me grab it. I have it. Hold on. It's the strangest studio ever. Hold on a second. So this is the actual pig head used in the movie. And there we go.
There we go.
Right.
Yep.
There it is. So I will not be putting it on today, but there you go. So it's really cool. And we're only doing 300 boxes. And, we're selling for $300, which is not a lot for the value that you have in it.
Great
and
Patrick, where will they be able to buy them?
We're going to put it on officialchevychase.com. Okay. So if you go into his shop, they'll be there next week at some point. And we're hoping to sell out, by the end of the month. And
for those that are listening to Trading Card Therapy and know that our show is sponsored by Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, I've worked out a deal with Patrick where I'm going to be buying one, and I'm actually going to give it away over the holiday season. So make sure you follow Just Collect and Vintage Breaks and, of course, Trading Card Therapy in the weeks to come over the holiday season, so you have a chance to win your exclusive 35th anniversary Chevy Chase mystery box. It's very cool, Patrick.
And then when we get into the new year, we're going to have to do a pack break with Chevy with the 1980
Topps basketball. Very cool.
Yeah. That's his time.
So tell me, if you are comfortable, what's one of the funniest moments you've had with Chevy? Because a lot of people know him as a funny guy. I'm curious if there's something that comes to mind that you could share that's going to,
There's so many. I mean,
everything. I figured. I didn't know if it's appropriate or not, but I'm hoping.
All right, I got one. All right. So we did this cruise ship. My wife and I, Chevy, his wife, Chevy's friend Peter, and their daughter Sydney and Kaylee. And so we're on this cruise ship. It was Turner Movie Classics, TMC cruise about 3 or 4 years ago. And, he's 81 years old. So on the cruise ship is far. So I got him a wheelchair so we can walk the distances. You know what I mean? He can walk fine. He's great. But if we go far, I put him in a wheelchair. So I had him in the wheelchair on the deck, and I would just roll him up to people and be like, Mr. Chase would like to take a picture with you. And he would get so mad at me. The minute we rolled away, he'd be like, Patrick, I'm like, oh man, I see one coming up. Look at the girl in the yellow. And he'd be like, don't do it. But he couldn't get out of the chair. So I have all these pictures of him, his arm around people, and he was just going out of his mind. He wanted to kill. He'll laugh today about it, but at the moment, he wanted to kill me. But I couldn't stop doing it because it was so funny.
Oh my God, that's great.
People are just like, what is going on? All of a sudden, Chevy Chase comes up and wants to take a picture with you. But that would be probably one of the best ones. But, I mean, bro, we find ourselves in shenanigans all the time. I think we went to a Lakers game 3 years ago, and we're sitting with Jeannie Buss and Darren Prince and a couple other cats, and he wants to say hi to LeBron. You know what I mean? They're playing a game, bro. And he wants to go say hi to LeBron. Now, Chevy's 6'3" or 4". Okay. And he's a big guy, and I'm not stopping him. Like, he's a grown man, you know what I mean? Like, I'll give him suggestions. Like, I don't think it's a good idea, man. Like, I'm going. But wherever he goes, I have to follow. So, we're on the floor, essentially. And so we walk around to the corner where they're sitting. It's a timeout. The game is playing, bro.
It's being played.
Yeah. He walks right onto the court, goes up to LeBron. LeBron sees him, gets excited. They give each other hugs. I got pictures of it. Security doesn't know what to do because he's already on there. LeBron's hugging him. What do you do? You know what I mean? And they stopped me, so I'm stuck there like just taking pictures. But I'm like, you're
this 5'6" guy looking up at everyone.
Yeah, this guy's nuts. But that's how Chevy is, man. Like, he's ask forgiveness, not permission type guy. But he's got a big heart. He's a real good guy. So we find ourselves in cockpits of airplanes and just always weird things, man. I mean, I can't. We were on Monday. We were doing a photo shoot for New York Magazine for him. To celebrate the 50th anniversary of SNL. So I find myself in this massive room, and Mike Myers is there, and Joe Piscopo, and Tracy Morgan, and Jeannie Garofalo, and like all these SNL people, and it's just so weird to see the interaction because he's essentially the OG, he's the original cast member, and it's always fun, always an adventure.
That's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that little nugget with us.
Yeah.
If you had to choose just one athlete or celeb to do a piece of art for, who would it be? Who's on your hit list?
Most of them I've gotten off the list. Stallone, Hulk, Post Malone, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was like a big one for me. You know what I mean? Like that one I was probably most excited about. I would say like a Jordan. If I ended up with Jordan,
Absolutely.
Anthony Edwards, new guy, love Anthony Edwards. I mean, I would go there and do a free one on a building, man. If he came and like said hi afterwards. I mean, I'm a big fan. So those would probably be the two just right off the top of my head.
Well, I think MJ would be great. I'd be happy to carry the paint for you just to be able to get in the building or the vicinity of Mr. Jordan.
Sure.
So I can keep you forever. I'm going to try to wrap up in the next couple of minutes here, Patrick. I'm curious, seeing as how the show is about collecting and cards and all that good stuff. Let me know, because you're a perfect person to ask, right? You're in the hobby, but yet you're not doing this full time. You're just really a collector who loves, the space. Tell me one thing that you love about the hobby, and then one thing that you don't like about the hobby right
now. I love the hobby because it's so diverse. It kind of checks all the boxes, right? So one, if you like collecting things, there you go, done. If you like sports, okay, there you go. It's that excitement between merging sports and collecting, and the challenge of trying to find items. Like it's just a fun sort of path to go down. It gets expensive, but yeah, there's just good energy there, man. I mean, and then you go to these freaking shows, and I don't even know how you do that. Like I can't. There's too much. It's too much stimulation.
Remember we were walking around together at the National? I mean,
yeah.
it was crazy. We had a very small want list, and I could see your head was going this way and your brain was going the other way.
That's why when we got to your booth, I just bought some from you and called it a day. I can't. It's too much, bro. I can't do it.
By the way, I'm going to tell the very quick story because it's really funny. Yeah. So we both appreciate each other and the time that we're taking to spend with each other. So at the National, you're busy, I'm busy, but I wanted to make sure, I gave you a nice welcome, and you were looking and still are for a Wilt Chamberlain rookie. So without exaggeration, Patrick and I, we covered a nice amount of the floor in a short period of time because you had to go work with Chevy, and I knew that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my break. That was kind of my break. And I got to hang out with you, and we walked around. So we weren't able to find one, and totally, of course, did not see this coming. So he's like, let's check out your booth. I'm like, I don't have a Chamberlain rookie. Sure, we'll go to my booth. I don't even understand what happened, but a few minutes later, you're like, all right, I'll take that. I'll trade you this for this. And I'm like, I didn't do this to get thousands of dollars in sales. Much appreciated, of course, but that's just how you roll. You're always very much in the moment.
I brought cash with me, and I was buying something. And if I'm going to buy something, if I can't get exactly what I'm looking for, I'm going to buy something from you, and that's it. So, and then we went out and we got those Topps 80s pack basketball.
We did. It was a good deal.
I cracked two of them.
You would have told me if you got a Magic Bird. That's how I know you didn't get one.
No, I didn't get a Magic Bird.
All right. So the last thing, because I have so much respect for you, not just as a person, Patrick, but your business journey. I've learned a lot from you in the years that I've known you. Thanks. What's a piece that you've learned as far as business goes that's actually helped you in collecting? It's helped you with your family. It's helped you in life. Because I feel like you're very wise in this area. And I'd like to have you leave us with a piece of advice.
Listen, it's going to be cheesy advice, but be nice. Just be nice to everybody. You know what I mean? Like, to me, there's no difference in the guy who works at Dunkin' Donuts versus a Stallone. I mean, like, obviously there's a difference, but to me, they're all people. Everybody's a person. So just be nice to everybody. And I try to be nice to everybody. Like, I have my grumpy days, I'm sure, like everybody does, where I don't want to talk to anybody, but then I stay away from people. But I try to always be nice and kind, and try to go out of my way for people. And it's the small, subtle nuances, I think, that go far away for people. So, those small acts of goodwill and kindness over the years and you do it over and over and over and over again, you get a reputation for being a good guy, and that opens the doors up, and that's, we can get into business like crazy, but to me, that's the basic philosophy.
Well, I think that's wonderful. And I sincerely appreciate you joining us today on Trading Card Therapy, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, big guy.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
I will talk. Bye.
All right, folks. So that is Patrick Ganino, very good friend of mine, who is the celebrity mural artist to the stars. Also, avid vintage basketball collector. And if you know where there's a PSA 7 or higher Wilt Chamberlain rookie card, let me know, and we're going to make sure we get it over to Patrick as he's looking for it. Thanks, everybody.